If y'all saw the live before this, um, I came on here just to y'all a little bit of wash day. I detangled my hair. We started around 3 in the morning. We finished detangling a little bit after 6 a.m., so about 3-ish hours to detangle and section all of my hair. And I told y'all it's probably gonna be like a little break and then we're gonna come back to it. And I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I ended up eating some breakfast and falling asleep. It is now after 10 in the morning. It is 10:21 a.m. Mind you, I have to be out later this evening. So now I'm kind of scared. I hope I'm able to shampoo, deep condition, and style my hair and have it dried before leaving the house today. It takes me a really long time to do my hair though. So let's not hold off anymore. Let me give y'all a quick overview of what we're going to be doing for today's wash day. I'm in the washroom, so that's why it looks really crazy over here. Those are masks. Those are face masks. So yeah. But for today's wash day, we're gonna start off with shampoo. Everything else is not over here, so I'll show y'all all that later. But I haven't done like a full detailed wash of my hair just in general since October. So I thought that my hair like really needs a good clarifying shampoo, especially because my style of choice is going to be a wash and go. And I haven't done a wash and go in a long time, but based off all the reviews and videos and tutorials I was seeing, they were like, you really want to make sure your hair is nice and clean for this. So I decided to go the clarifying shampoo route because I think that's what my hair needs. Like I said, it hasn't gotten like a full scalp wash since October. And it is the end of December now. So I ended up going back and forth trying to figure out what sort of clarifying shampoo to use. And I ended up falling down with getting this, the Design Essentials Oat Protein and Henna Deep Cleansing Shampoo. No specific reason. Actually, I was going to a beauty master to get a different type of shampoo, but when I got there, I noticed the price was like $3, $4, $5 extra than what I saw online. And I was gonna end up going to a different location where I knew that they had it a little cheaper to get it from. But as I was walking out the beauty master, I actually saw this Design Essentials, and it was on sale and for a price that was like pretty on par what I was gonna end up paying or what I planned to spend for the other shampoo. And I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about Design Essentials being really good. So I'm excited to use this today. This will be my first time using it, but I'm hoping I get like a really good cleanse of my hair. It smells good. It doesn't smell like anything crazy. It smells like just regular um shampoo. So, first things first, I detangled my hair with conditioner, so I need to, especially now that it has since basically dried, I need to sit up under this sink and try to get the moisture back in my hair and rinse off as much of this conditioner as possible, and then I will start going through and shampooing. Since it's a clarifying shampoo, I think I'm only gonna have to shampoo once, but just in case, I might end up shampooing twice with this, and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna angle y'all down so y'all can see me in the sink. Yes, I do wash my hair in the sink because my wash day already takes way too long. So washing my hair in the shower and having to stand up and be all drenched in hair product just doesn't make sense for me. So I like to wash outside in the sink, not in the shower, because I would be in there literally all day. So let's angle y'all down now. This is where I want to be. And while I shampoo my hair, typically I'll also leave my hair tools in here that I use for detangling, so that like you see the unbrush that I was trying out has like conditioner and old dirty product in it, and then these clips, I like to keep those in there so that while I'm washing my hair they can get a thorough clean, so that they also aren't dirty as I use them with the rest of my hair process. So go ahead and get started. I'm gonna use some like lukewarm-ish temperature. And usually while I'm doing this, I would try to listen to like a YouTube video or some music. But most of the time I can't hear it in no house, so I'm not going to listen to nothing right now. But when we go into conditioning later, I will most likely turn something on to listen to while we doing this together. And I'm just giving everything like a good rinse off first because all this stuff has also since dried. Since it's been a few hours, about 4 hours since I stopped using them and put them in here. Okay. I'm gonna start getting my hair wet. Oh wait, y'all, I'm tripping. I never brought a towel down here to dry my hair off with. Give me 1 second. I need to find a good towel and then I'll be back. I'm just not realizing like I don't have nothing to dry my hair off with after. Give me a second. Okay, y'all, I am back and I have a towel now. Oh my gosh, I really can't believe I was about to start with no towel. But, okay, let's go back to this. Let me start trying to get this hair saturated. Oh, that's so cold. And to answer any questions, I don't know my porosity hair. I've never taken the time to do the little test thingy. But if any of y'all are on here and know like about hair and can tell based off of the things that y'all see me do, let me know. But no, I do not know what porosity my hair is. After us talking about hair type, things just got really confusing from there. Things got really confusing. Okay, so hair seems to be fully saturated. From here, I'm gonna keep it wet and just start going in with this shampoo. When it comes to shampoo, I'm very heavy-handed. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, so we'll see how much I end up using. This stuff smells really good. No distinct smell. It just like reminds me of the smell of shampoo. Really, like nothing crazy, but it's a good smell. It smells like sweet too. So this first round of shampoo that I'm putting in, there's no like real rhyme or reason to it. I'm just trying to make sure that like it hits my scalp all over while my hair is still wet. And then I go in and start like massaging it into each section where my scalp is out, and then I massage each section individually to make sure that the shampoo thoroughly cleanses. I will say my hair doesn't feel stripped, which is really good for this to be like a cleansing shampoo. I thought my hair would feel like squeaky feeling. So that's good. Okay, so now that I feel like I have shampoo pretty much all over, well, let me do a little bit in the front. Okay, now I'm gonna start going through each section and just trying to get up under those twists. Just giving like my hair a little scalp massage, but also trying to work that shampoo in. Like I say, when it comes to shampoo, I tend to be a little heavy-handed. Let me see if I can touch y'all up just a little bit so y'all can see. Yeah. And those sounds that you're hearing, I'm in the washroom, so that's like, I told y'all I'm trying to do my laundry too. So there's just the washer and dryer going to work. Trying to multitask and get everything done at the same time. Okay, so I got that back row done. Now we're going in on this next row of hair. And then, like I said, we're just getting up under that twist and making sure that my scalp is actually shampooed. Which is another reason why I like shampooing and twist, because I'm able to direct the shampoo right where I want it, as opposed to like having to get through all my hair. My hair is thick, so it can sometimes be hard to really reach that scalp when it's in one big clump, at least for like me doing my own hair myself. Now going to like a hairstylist, of course they can see everything, so they can really get to that scalp. But when you're doing your hair yourself, sometimes things can be a little more difficult, you know? Just getting my hair up under the twist and massaging it all around, making sure that shampoo really hits that scalp. Okay, the back two sections are done. Now we're gonna start moving up to this front section. I'll start with the section closest to y'all first. And I'm being like really gentle as I'm massaging my scalp. I'm not going in and scratching it. I'm using literally like the pads of my fingers. I'm not going in with my nails. Because you don't want to end up having like an inflamed and bloody scalp. Because you was going in a little too crazy on the scalp massage. You still want to be gentle to your hair. And this is also why detangling comes in key, because I'm able to actually hit that scalp in these twists without it like causing me any sort of issues. Like I said, I'm very heavy-handed when it comes to products. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Especially when it comes to shampooing, because I'm gonna make sure my hair clean. If it's one thing I'm gonna do, is make sure my hair is clean. Okay, I'm getting to this last row of hair. Last two sections. Okay. Now I'm just gonna like try to work that shampoo into the rest of my hair strands. I'll take a little bit more. I think I am gonna double cleanse. That's how I'm feeling right now. But and just run it down right here a little bit. One more overall head massage just real quick. And I'm gonna rinse this out and then do a second shampoo. Okay. So how does my hair feel after using that shampoo? Not bad, I'm not gonna lie. It does definitely feel like it clarified everything. I'm gonna do a little scratch test, which I didn't learn this from anywhere. This is just something that I started doing when I was younger and washing my hair myself. I would shampoo it and then scratch my scalp, and then if like there was dirt or like any sort of product buildup in my nail, then that would let me know like, yeah girl, you need to go wash that scalp again and thoroughly. And I'm not getting anything, so I think we're good. But just to be safe, because I really want to make sure that my hair is fully clean, I'm gonna do a little more shampoo But like I said, this time I'm gonna focus it on the actual hair strands and not necessarily on the scalp. I'll still of course get some on the scalp, but my focus is going to be getting this on the hair strands. So I'm going to be working it into the actual twists themselves. Ooh, I got like a little cramp. Like a little muscle spasm real quick. You know, this is just the second shampoo, so it's not as detailed of like a rubbing through that I'm gonna do, because that first go through of the shampoo did all the hard work. This is now to, like, you know, double checking your answers, just making sure, skimming over your work, just to ensure that everything is getting washed. And I love this lather. Oh my gosh. I love a good lather. Okay. Okay, I'll be right back. I need to just take a quick look at my hair in the mirror, and then we're gonna rinse this out. Okay. I looked at my hair in the mirror. Off to a good start. I think we're doing good. I'm just gonna run some of this like excess shampoo that was on my hands onto the actual this little unbrush situation. This will can help get some of that shampoo, well not shampoo, but that dirty conditioner and old product from my hair up off of it just a little better. Which is really bad on my part. I should have just went straight in earlier and rinse these, but I thought I was going to get straight into washing my hair. I didn't know that I was going to end up taking a nap, a 3 hour nap, 3 hours. I didn't really actually fall asleep until like 7. Oh yeah, so still like 3 hour nap. I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. I might have to take this to the actual sink with a little more pressure. I think I got it as clean as I'm going to be able to get it. Just wiping off some of these clips. And now I'm going to rinse all this shampoo out. And this is just under some lukewarm water. Like, it's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's just right in the middle. Okay. My hair is now thoroughly washed. I like to like squeeze as much of the water out of my hair first before taking it to a towel, just because I don't want the towel to be like super wet. Once again, the whole reason why I don't wash my hair in the shower is because I don't want my body to be unnecessarily wet. So I try to get as much of that water out just by twisting it, bringing it out like it's a towel or a rag or something, a sponge. Trying to get most of that water out as possible, and then I'll go in with a towel. I don't rub the towel or anything like that because I'm about to put this deep conditioner in, and if necessary I will add in like more water. So I'm not trying to get my hair super dry, I'm just trying to get it dry enough so I can walk over to the next area. So hair is now shampooed. That is the end of all the stuff that I do at the sink, or at least for now, because I think I'm actually gonna wash the deep conditioner out in the shower, because I do need to take a shower, and since I'm going out tonight, I might as well rinse the deep conditioner out while I'm in the shower. But I'm just gonna rinse off these clips one more time because I'm gonna need to use them for the next part of my hair. Rinsing off this brush. Which is not as clean as it could be, but it's clean enough. Like, it's pretty clean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Most of everything is up and off of it. Okay, I'm gonna move all this over to the bathroom sink, and then I'll move y'all. Just give me a second. I think it's on water. I feel like my water is already in here because I don't see it out there anywhere. Let me get y'all moved and situated. Oh yeah, my water's in here. Okay. Now on to part 2 of this wash routine. Let me get y'all moving and shaking and moving. I think I'm gonna put y'all right there. I'm trying to figure out if I want to close this door or not. I feel like if I close it, I'm gonna get hot, but at the same time, I don't want y'all like having to see everything that's in the washroom. But I feel like we're good for now. Okay, so here is the next step, or the next step of wash day routines for me. So y'all saw me, I did my clarifying shampoo. Next step is deep conditioner. So for that step, I usually like to sit here in the bathroom. Y'all see I'm on a chair. I like to get comfortable because this is gonna take time. Good thing I already detangled my hair, so that part is already over. I'm just actually just trying to get the product in. So the main product that I'm going to be using today is the Aunt Jackie's In Control Anti-Poof Moisturizing and Softening Conditioner. This is what it looks like. Why I'm using this, there's no real rhyme or reason. This is kind of like the only deep conditioner that I have left, and I actually got this to like as a product sample to review for them. Like it wasn't no PR, no having to make a video, anything like that. Just they sent it to me to see my review and how I felt about it. So that's really why I have it. I didn't necessarily go out searching for it myself, but the last few times I used it, it wasn't bad. I would say for detangling your hair, I wouldn't say that this is the best for detangling it, but good thing I don't really have to deal with that because I detangle my hair at the very beginning of a wash day process. So I'm not really looking for this to detangle. I'm just trying to get the moisture out of it. But I didn't notice that I only had this much left in it when I was looking through all my hair stuff to figure out what I needed to purchase. This looked like it was full until I saw today, and I was like, oh, it's not really that full. So just in case I end up finishing this, because I do tend to be heavy-handed, I have this as like a second thing. This is the L'Oreal Paris Elvive Extraordinary Oil Rapid Reviver Deep Conditioner for dry hair. Another thing, no rhyme or reason, that's why I had this. I've actually had this for a few years, but I don't see any expiration date on it, so I hope it's still good to use. And this was also sent to me in like a whole, I feel like they also sent me the shampoo for it, but I can't remember. Either way it goes, they sent me this just to do a product review for them. Nothing crazy, not even like a video. They just wanted me to try it out, give them an honest written review on it. So those are the two things I'm going to be using. After that, I'll put this plastic cap on, maybe sit under like a hooded dryer for a little bit, maybe not, maybe just like get some stuff done around the house, and then I'll hop in the shower to rinse it off, take my shower, and then we'll go into the next part of the hair process. So what y'all hear me doing right now, I'm just emptying, I'm emptying my water bottle, my spray bottle. This is what I was using earlier to detangle my hair, and it had water mixed with conditioner in it. But that's not the conditioner that I actually want to use to deep conditioner or anything like that. So I'm just going to empty that water out, give this bottle just like a little refresh, and then put some fresh water in it. So just in case I need to add any extra moisture back into my hair, I can go ahead and do that. And I'm adding like warm water in there because I don't know, I just love warm water on my hair personally. So if I get to pick, it's always gonna be warm. Okay. So we're gonna do this first one or two with y'all, and then I'm going to go back to listen to my audiobook. If y'all were on here earlier in the other live, I talked about how audiobooks are a new thing for me. I'm testing and trying it out. My friend put me on to the joy and wonders of free audiobooks through your free audiobooks through okay. Woo. My friend put me onto the joys of free audiobooks through using your library card, which I did not know about prior to her telling me. Like, I've heard about it, but I never actually tried to do it until she told me, like, oh yeah, it is legit, like you should try it out, sort of situation. I tried it out. I read my first book last week. I finished it in 1 week. I finished it on Saturday. It's Tuesday now, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to it while in the car, just traveling from place to place, going to and from the store, whatever. And while I was actually traveling on planes and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. It did take me some time to like train my brain on paying attention, coming from being someone who is or was a physical book sort of person. I did physical books because it's like, oh, you have no choice but to pay attention. You know, you can't not pay attention when it's a physical book. Like, you can kind of wander off, but you're reading it at the end of the day. It's not as many distractions. But my whole issue with doing a audiobook, I was like, oh, I'm scared to do audiobooks because I feel like my mind's gonna wander. I'm not really gonna pay attention to what's going on, and it's just gonna become background music, because that's how things are for me. Like the TV, I have it on, but I may not actually be paying attention. It's on for background music. Same thing with music in the car, or just music in general. I have it playing as background, not necessarily because I'm trying to listen to whatever it is, but I just need something playing. So the first few days of like actually listening to the audiobook, that's kind of how it was. And then I would hear a part that sounded juicy, and then I would have to like rewind it a little bit to be like, I don't even know how we got here. So let me figure out how we got here. But then I actually started like getting into the book, and I really loved it. That first book that I decided to do on audiobook through the app Libby, I don't know if I said that earlier, but the first book that I listened to or read through the audiobook on Libby was Drunk on Love by Jasmine Guillory. I really loved it. It was definitely one of those books where like you knew exactly what was going to happen at the end, at the beginning. Like you knew. I'm a romance, YA, young adult romance book reader. Those are the books that I enjoy to read. I'm gonna get into the self-help stuff this upcoming year though, only because more people are recommending me different books to read on that sort of stuff. But when I'm just reading for enjoyment, for leisure, it's usually a YA romance, something lighthearted. And that was definitely a book where like you knew exactly what was gonna happen from the beginning, but I still very much so enjoyed it. And now I'm reading By the Book, I think is the name, also by Jasmine Guillory. And this one I would definitely say is a slow burn. I was saying earlier I was like 40% through the book, and like, well, I don't know if it's a slow burn per se. You could kind of tell what was going to happen from the beginning, but compared to the last book where it got straight into the spiciness from the get-go, this one definitely took more time to get to it, so you kind of have to like anticipate like, okay, when is it going to happen, when is it going to happen, when is it going to happen. And at 40 something percent you could kind of see something. It's like, okay, I'm catching on to what's going on here. Now I think I'm like 50 something percent of the way through the book, since listening to it while detangling my hair earlier. But still nothing has happened spicy in between the two main characters, but you could tell like, okay, time is just ticking. Like we're waiting for it. We're starting to see the characters slowly but surely like let their guards down. So we're gonna get back into listening to that. But typically before audiobooks on watch days, I would just watch YouTube videos, catch up on all my people, because I really only watch YouTube for my morning and nighttime routine, brush my teeth, wash my face, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't really get to enjoy a whole bunch of the people that I subscribe to. So when I'm doing my hair and I know I'm going to be sitting down for 12 plus hours, That's typically my time to watch YouTube. But since I'm getting into audiobooks, I'm just at that point where it's like, no, I need to know what happens next. So we're going to listen to this audiobook. And it's just my slight plug to y'all as well. Go get a library card. Like, I knew the joys of libraries when I was younger. I used to be a very avid person in the libraries. My godparents would always send me like Barnes and Noble gift cards. I know that's not the library, but they would send me those things so I could get my own books. And then once I started getting my own books, I kind of stopped going to the library. But now seeing like how much has evolved and how much you can get just off of having a library card beyond physical books is actually kind of crazy. So I would definitely suggest to anybody, get, if your area has a public library, please go and get your library card. For real, for real. Yeah, no, see, I don't think I'm gonna do too much raking through with this, only because this product, like I said, is not it's not the best for detangling, in my opinion. And for oh, the lights are tweaking. For conditioning my hair, I would usually always start with products in the back of my head and work my way up. But as of recently, I've noticed the back of my hair is really has a very loose curl pattern and texture. It's always been like that for as long as I can remember. In the front of my hair, especially the middle of my hair, would be the areas with tighter curl patterns. It would always be like more tender-headed, harder, drier, all that sort of stuff. So as of recently, like maybe as of this year, honestly, I've decided like, when I'm conditioning, why don't I start doing it in the opposite way and start with the conditioner in the front of my hair and then work my way back, only because I feel like these strands in the front of my hair need that moisture way more. Like, I feel like it takes longer for the moisture to really absorb in the front of my hair. So that's why I'm starting in the front. Let me just undo this next twist and then try to run some of this excess product off of it, and then we're gonna get into this book, because baby, I've got to know what happens next. Okay, I've got to know. Okay, Libby by the Book by Jasmine Guillory. We are 5 hours and 35 minutes in. We are 58% of the way through this book. We have 4 hours left in the book. And I feel like with just my hair, I should be able to get through majority of the rest of this. So let's see what she got next for us.
Oh, hi, she said. She felt awkward with him again, like she had at first. Was he going to regret all those revelations of the night before? Good morning. He smiled at her, a little tentatively. He held up her key ring with the keys to the house and car on it. These are still yours, if you want them. She held out a hand, and he walked over and dropped the keys in it. Also, he took the milk out of the fridge and handed it to her. You didn't tell me when that homework assignment you gave me was due, but I couldn't sleep last night, so I wrote it all up. And then I typed it up this morning. You don't have to look at it now. I just wanted you to know. No time like the present, she said. Where's your laptop? Oh, he looked terrified. I didn't expect... You don't have to do it now. I just wanted you to know I was taking it seriously, what you said. She took a gulp of coffee. You keep telling me I don't have to do things. Bo, do you think I don't know that? You've lived with me for almost a month now. Is there a lot that I've done here that it seems like I didn't want to do? She hadn't been like that before she'd gotten here. She'd done so much that she didn't want to do for Marta, at work in general, even with guys she dated. She thought she had to advance in her job, for them to like her, keep dating her. All the terrible movies she'd seen, boring lectures she'd sat through, gross beers she'd sipped. She'd smiled the whole time, but now she realized how unhappy she'd been. Now that you mention it, I can't think of a single thing that you've done here that it seemed like you didn't want to do, he said. Well, other than those pep talks that first week. She laughed. You got me there. They smiled at each other. For real, this time. I think I keep saying that, he said, because I don't want to be like my dad. And sometimes I am like him. I was in the library yesterday, so I want to make sure that you're sure. She picked up a cinnamon roll from the pan next to him on top of the stove. They were still warm. She looked up at him as she thought about how to respond to what he'd said. He looked at her intently as he waited. Yesterday, you promised me you'd never treat me like that again. He started to say something, but she held up a hand to stop him. I'm still here because I believed you. And if I ever feel like you're doing anything, even unintentionally, to break that promise, I'll tell you, okay? He suddenly looked lighter. Okay, he said. Thank you. She smiled at him. You're welcome. He smiled back. He picked up a cinnamon roll and pulled off a piece of it. He popped the bite into his mouth and then licked the frosting off his finger. She suddenly realized they were standing very close. Closer than they'd been since. He took a step closer to her. Isabel.
Ooh.
She liked when he said her name like that.
Hold up now.
All low-voiced and sleepy and a little growly. When did she start liking that? She hadn't liked it before, had she? Had she liked it when he'd done that at the very beginning? She had. Of course, she had. She took a step back. So, where's your laptop? He dropped his hand. In the library. She reached for the coffee pot and filled up her mug. Let's go to the library, then. Izzy had worried that the library would be tainted for her after their fight in here yesterday. But as soon as she walked in, it felt like the room welcomed her back in, like a friend who had been gone too long. It felt like the walls, the shelves, the chairs had known she would be back, had been cheering for her the whole time. Were cheering for Beau now.
Those curls.
She sat down in the chair she always sat in and felt the way they settled in together. It felt like a hug. She laughed at herself. Was she anthropomorphizing furniture again? It's not actually hugging you, Izzy. Beau set his laptop in front of her, and she scooted the chair in closer to the table. That's it. That's everything I told you last night, and a little bit more. Maybe this is weird, but, I just wrote it like I was writing it to you.
Ooh.
I didn't change that as I typed it up. I was too worried that I'd trash it. It was easier to write it like that, somehow. She looked across the table at him, not sure what to say. I'm really glad that made it easier. But also, she gestured to the notebook on the table. I don't think I can trust you alone with this overnight again. Can I? He shook his head. Absolutely not. They grinned at each other. Then Izzy turned to the laptop screen. Beau jumped up, like he hadn't done since the first time she'd read his work. I'm not gonna go outside again. I'm just gonna, go over there. He pointed to the far side of the library. I'll look at some books, otherwise I might, stare at you too much.
Ooh.
Izzy laughed. Okay. I'll let you know when I'm done. Once Beau was at the other end of the room, Izzy concentrated on what he'd written. It was rough, more so than other parts of the book he'd shown her, but it also felt more honest, more like him. She made a few notes, asked a few questions, but she held on to her biggest question. I'm done. You can come back now, she said. Bo came back so quickly she knew the book in his hands hadn't distracted him at all. I was just reading some... He looked down at the book he was holding. Russian literature. She tried not to smile. Russian literature? He nodded very quickly. Oh, yeah, totally. All the greats. You learn so much from them about writing and life and, vodka. They both burst out laughing. Bo put the book down at the end of the table and sat across from Izzy. She pushed the laptop across to him. This was where they usually just sat in silence while he read her notes. But this time, she started talking. I only had a few notes that I put in there. Like you said, it was mostly what you told me last night. I'm glad you wrote it when it was fresh in your mind. It made it have that same urgency, that same honesty that it did when you told me. There's a lot you can expand on, of course, and this is going to bleed out into a lot more of the book. But I'm sure you know that. He nodded as he listened to her. But I had one big question that I didn't put in there, and I wanted to ask you. He let out a big breath. Okay. Ask. Would he get mad if she asked him this? She didn't think so, but she supposed if he did, it was good to know that now. You said last night that you haven't talked to your mom about all this. He nodded. Yeah. But yesterday, she said, you sat outside and waited for me to come back so you could apologize to me. How long did you sit there anyway? He looked down. I don't know. An hour? I wasn't sure what to do. I don't have your number. It's not like I've ever had to text you. We live in the same house. I knew Michaela had it, and I almost texted her. I decided I would have if it got dark before you got home, and it was getting there when you drove up. He sighed. But that wasn't your point. What you meant was, I sat there and waited for you so I could apologize to you right away. Why have I waited all this time to talk to my mom? Wasn't it? She nodded. Sort of, but I wasn't going to say it quite like that. I mean, I get it. You've barely known me a month. It's not a big deal. Your mom is a different story. He looked right at her. It was a big deal, Isabel. You're a big deal to me. She met his eyes and then looked away. But she didn't know what to say.
Now she's a big
This
deal
conversation
to
was
her.
suddenly a lot more than she'd bargained for.
Okay, now.
But yes, I get what you mean, he said.
Say you're a big
It's different.
deal to me.
But I think part of why I sat there and waited for you, part of why I knew I had to talk to you, was because I know how bad it feels not to do it right away. I know how bad it feels to wait until it's too late. I knew that if I didn't get to tell you how sorry I was as soon as I could, I'd regret it forever. She looked at him, and she could see the sincerity in his eyes.
I'm moving on to this front section.
Then don't you think you've waited long enough to talk to your mom? She asked him. Just think how much better you'll feel afterward. He swallowed hard. You're right. Of course you are. But also, does it have to be today? I can only deal with one hard conversation a month, and that's pushing it. And so far there have been 4 in less than 24 hours. I'm sort of reaching a breaking point here. She laughed, and he did too, even though she was pretty sure they both knew he wasn't kidding. How about this? She said. How about you text her and ask if you can find a time to come see her? That way you've done the hardest thing, and you'll have a plan, and you won't have to think about it for a while. He looked down at the table. That's a good idea, he finally said. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. I usually don't even have this with me. He unlocked the phone and scrolled through it. I don't know what to say to her, though. Izzy smiled at him. Yes, you do. He looked at her, then down at his phone. Yeah, I guess I do. He typed quickly with his thumbs. There. He lifted his head, a terrified look on his face. It's done. She smiled at him. Good. Also, you should probably have my number, just in case. He pushed his phone across the table to her.
He trying to get them
Good idea.
digits.
She added her number to his phone and pushed the phone back to him. He stared at his phone for
I
a
love
second,
this.
and his eyes widened.
He got her
What if
phone
she doesn't
number.
text me back? The age-old question. I think we need to fill the next few hours with something that makes it impossible for you to check your phone compulsively. She stood up. Do you want to teach me to surf some more? His face relaxed. Absolutely.
I love this.
Chapter 20. As they drove toward the beach, she looked out at the horizon. It was still overcast and drizzly and windier than the day before. It didn't feel like the best day for surfing, especially when she remembered how hard it had been the last time, when the weather was much calmer. Maybe we should just sit on the beach instead of surfing? Bo laughed. Oh, you're not getting out of this so easily. You said surfing. We're going to surf today. He put his hand on her shoulder, and his voice got more serious. The surf isn't too high for you today. I checked, and I'll be right there. But if you really don't want to go, we don't have to. Whatever you want to do. Did she still trust him after the past few days? She shouldn't. She still felt wary of him, she knew that. And it shouldn't reassure her when he said he'd be right there. But it did. It's okay, she said. We can try it, at least. They got down to the beach and went back to the surf shop. The same blonde woman was there from last time, and she greeted them both. Bo and Izzy, hey! How did she remember their names? Bo smiled at her. Hi, Dottie. Can we get that same surfboard and wetsuit or similar for Isabel again today? She nodded. Sure thing. She turned to go through the wetsuits, and Izzy nudged Bo. It's okay for you to call me Izzy, she said. He turned and looked down at her. Thank you. I will. He smiled. But I like Isabel, you know.
Ooh.
I like the sound of it.
I like your name.
He was so close to
What
her.
is your mother
They were
calling
almost
you?
touching. I do too,
Oh.
she said. Okay, great.
I love when
Izzy
you call
jumped
me
at the sound of
Isabel.
Dottie's voice.
Hold it.
Here's your wetsuit, Iz. Sure. Okay, that seemed like a very beach town surf shop kind of nickname. She could live with it. You know where the changing room is. They went down to the water, Bo carrying the surfboard again. He dropped it down onto the sand. Okay, he said. Let's have you lie down on it like before, and then practice sliding yourself up into that same stance I taught you last time. Do you remember how to do that? Oh no. Why had she suggested surfing? Yes, I remember. My body hurts just at the memory. Bo made Izzy practice lying down on the surfboard and then sliding into a standing position over and over again on the sand. Finally, he said she was ready to go into the water. At first, he had her pull herself up so she was kneeling on the board. Once she'd done that successfully a few times, which took a while, he told her to try to stand. As soon as she tried, she fell off. And then again. And again. The fourth time, though, she finally got herself into a standing position for a few seconds before a wave came and she lost her balance and fell off again. When she surfaced, though, they were both grinning. That was great, Bo said. Now let's do it again. They stayed in the water for a long time. After she managed to stand up 2 more times, they walked together onto the beach. Izzy collapsed onto the sand and Bo sat down next to her. The sky and the water were still just as gray as they'd been the day before, but now Izzy could see all the gradations of color, the paler, brighter gray, where the sun was trying to poke out, the darker gray, where there was more cloud cover, the bright white of the surf, the soft beige of the sand. It no longer looked sad and depressing, but peaceful. I came here yesterday, she said. Bo turned to look at her, but she kept looking forward. I sat here for a while. It helped. I'm glad, he said. She was glad he didn't apologize again. They'd already had that conversation. That wasn't why she'd said it. She just wanted him to know. He nudged her. She could feel the warmth of his body through her wetsuit. She wanted to lean into it, but resisted. Thanks, he said, for making me send that text today. She smiled at him. You're welcome. They were silent for a while. It felt nice to be there with him, to be comfortable with him, to be at peace with him again. Can I ask you a question?
Hold
He
up
said.
now.
She looked at him. He had a tiny triangle of freckles on his right cheek that she'd never noticed before. She usually wasn't this close to him. Okay, she said. He hesitated a moment. I've been wondering this for a while.
Ooh, what's the question?
Why aren't you a writer?
Oh, okay.
You read so much. You have
Woo!
such good instincts about writing.
So I'm trying
You're
to
such
tell
a
you,
good
it's a slow
editor.
burn. Like, when is it gonna
Haven't
happen?
you ever wanted to write too?
When is it going to happen?
She looked down at the sand. Maybe he knew her better than she thought. I did. I used to be a writer. Now he turned his whole body to face her. What do you mean you used to be? Do you write? Then you're a writer. Aren't you the one who told me that? She looked at him sideways. I hate you so much. Do you know that? He laughed out loud. I know. But she sighed. You're right. I wanted to be a writer since I was little. I was a writer for a long time. For years. I wrote a novel. She closed her eyes for a second. She never told anyone, really told anyone about this. She'd been too ashamed. But after the past few days, it felt like all the barriers had come down between her and Bo. She felt like she could say anything to him. I was really hopeful about it. And then a while ago, someone I work with, one of the assistant editors, read it. He was very kind about it, said it was a very sweet first effort, and he didn't want to discourage me at all, but that it felt very juvenile. He didn't want me to embarrass myself by passing it along to anyone else. She looked out at the water. I felt like all my dreams died. Right in that moment. Let me guess, Bo said. That guy Gavin. She turned to look at him. He looked furious, more angry than she'd ever seen him. Yeah, she said. It was Gavin. Bo shook his head. You can't listen to that guy. I told you, he's trying to sabotage you. He's scared of you and how good you are. He wanted to make you feel like you're not talented, not accomplished, not good enough. He probably didn't even read the whole thing. Just pulled out enough from it to say things that he knew would sting, so you wouldn't talk to anyone else about this. She was scared to believe that. Scared to hope. If that was his goal, it worked. It was a real hit to my confidence. There were a lot of those over the past year, actually. I was on the point of giving up on all this. Writing, publishing, the whole thing. He rested his hand next to hers on the sand. You said, was? Have you changed your mind? She nodded slowly. I think so. Then she let herself smile. I want to say that a different way. Yes, I've changed my mind. I'm still scared about it, but all the pep talks I gave you, I guess they got to me too. Since I've been here, I've started writing again. Just a little. I had this idea that wouldn't get out of my head, so I started writing little bits of it, and it's making me really happy. He smiled at her, That's great, Izzy. I'm glad. She smiled back at him. Me too. And even my job has felt different. Don't get me wrong, the problems are all still there. Maybe it's partly the distance. I have a better perspective on work now that I'm not in the building every day. But it's also been my work with you. I felt excited about my work, hopeful about what this job could be. It's made me want to bring my old dreams back to life. So, thank you for that. You're welcome, but I didn't do any of that. You did it all. A grin slowly spread across his face. I have an idea. What if there's a new rule for the writing time in the library? We both have to write. Not just me. She pulled her knees up to her chest. You're not going to take no for an answer on this one, are you? She asked. He shook his head. Absolutely not. But then, you wouldn't have told me about this if you wanted that from me. He was probably right about that. He put his hand on her back. She wanted to lean into it, reach out for him, but she didn't. Come on, he said. Let's go home. We have lots of snacks waiting for us. She jumped up. You're right. I bet the snack cabinet misses us. It's probably making up little songs just to be ready for us to come back. When they got back to the car, Bo tossed her a hoodie from the back seat. Here, you look cold.
Oh, nice.
She was cold.
His hoodie.
She should have worn something other than a sleeveless dress to the beach in this weather. As she slipped it on, he cleared his throat. I know you said not to apologize again, but I just need to say this. I can be a real asshole. But if I'd known that about you and writing, I never would have said what I said yesterday. I really hate that I hurt you like that. She touched his arm.
He's really a nice person.
I know.
He can be a
They were mostly quiet on the way home. Izzy was glad she'd suggested surfing. Things felt better between them. Not back to how it had been before. That was impossible. Good. In a different way, though. Izzy checked her phone when she got back to the house. Met a hot medical student last night, friend of my cousin. Keep your fingers crossed, he asked me out. Izzy laughed. Priya always managed to find hot guys wherever she went. She wrote back, fingers and toes are crossed. When Izzy got back downstairs after a shower, she wandered to the kitchen. When she got there, she stopped and stared. Bo stood at the kitchen island, his hands and a part of his t-shirt dusted in flour, rolling out dough. What are you doing?
Let's put my feet up.
He looked up from the dough to her. Making croissants? I started them last night after you went to bed. They take forever. But now it's time to laminate the dough. Laminate the dough? What are you talking about? Then it suddenly hit her. Wait. You make the baked goods? He laughed. Yes, of course I make them. Where do you think they came from? She walked over to the island to look at what he was doing. I don't know. I thought maybe the mixer and the oven became sentient and just popped them out on their own after we went to bed. She grinned at him. That or Michaela. He went back to rolling the dough. Michaela does do everything important around here, but no, it was me. He shrugged. When I got here, I had nothing to do other than just sit around and feel bad about everything. And I did that for a while. And then one night, when I was up late, I haven't slept all that well in a while. I watched some cooking show, one of the old ones where no one looked camera ready and they were all kind of boring and pedantic. But I sort of got into it. And so I dug out some of my grandmother's old cookbooks from the library and tried to make biscuits. He shook his head. They were terrible that first time. Heavy and dense. But it just made me want to try to get them right. And once I did, I kept trying with other stuff. He looked down at the dough and then turned to open the refrigerator. I tried croissants once before, and they were good, but I knew I could do better. It's been a while, though, so we'll see how they turn out. But I figured I'd wait until I really needed to, and last night felt like the right time. He took a flat square of something out of the fridge and peeled the plastic wrap from around it. What do you mean, wait until you really needed to? She asked. He set the square in the center of the dough. This is gonna sound stupid, a good distraction for me when things are difficult. And the more complicated the recipe is, the better it is at taking my mind off things. I mean, it's fun, too, don't get me wrong. I've gotten very dorky about different kinds of flours, and now I have a favorite brand of vanilla. Please don't when I said that. But having to do a million steps means I can't think about anything else. And croissants take a lot of concentration. He folded the dough around the square and pinched the corners together. She couldn't take it any longer. Is that butter? Because if so, that's a lot of butter. He laughed, definitely at her this time. It is butter. That's why croissants taste so good. He picked up the rolling pin again and rolled the dough-encased butter gently from the middle outward. Izzy came closer to the island to watch. You have to let the butter soften and then sort of press and squish it into a square shape, and then roll it out so it's flat enough, and then refrigerate it again. He picked up the dough and turned it sideways. And then you fold it up like this in your dough and roll it all out. And once you've done that, you fold the dough in thirds.
Let's get y'all back up there.
Then roll
so
it out
y'all
again.
See.
That's called laminating. It's how you get all those flaky layers. He made a face. Well, if you do it right. I didn't last time. I was too impatient. She looked down at the dough.
There we go.
I didn't realize it was that complicated. He held up the rolling pin. Do you want to try? She walked around the island to stand next to him, and he handed her the rolling pin. She put it down at the edge and started to press down when he stopped her. No, not like that. Have you never rolled out dough before? His voice was teasing, but not mocking. She could tell the difference now. She shook her head. My grandmother makes biscuits too, but she never lets anyone else help. She thought back to those times and laughed. Plus, I was always busy reading. He put his hands on hers, still holding the rolling pin, and moved them to the center of the dough, and then took a step back. You roll from the middle outward. That way it makes the dough more even in the end. She pressed down and felt the dough move as she rolled the pin in one direction and then in the other. Like this? She asked. He nodded, but she could tell something was wrong. What is it? Am I ruining your dough? One corner of his lips tipped up. Not ruining it, exactly. It's just that she laughed. I knew there was something. Show me. He moved behind her and put his hands on top of hers. You need a little more power here.
Ooh.
That's all. They rolled the dough together, first in one direction and then in the other. It's easier for me because I'm so much taller. It felt nice, with him standing behind her like that, surrounding her with his warmth, with his strong hands on top of hers, with his arms around hers. She wanted to lean into him, into all this.
Things are getting spicy.
It felt far too nice. She dropped her hands, and so did he. I'll let you finish this part then. She stepped back, and he moved away. I can, get dinner warmed up, because I don't know about you, but I'm starving. She had forgiven Beau, but that didn't mean that she had to let herself go back down that particular path. It would be too easy, and it would hurt too much, especially since she was going back to New York in a week. He nodded without looking at her. Good idea, I'm starving too. She turned to the fridge, then stopped. Wait, So you're telling me that up to a few weeks ago, you did all this baking and then just left the kitchen like this for someone else to clean up? With lots of dishes and flour everywhere? He looked around at the kitchen, then back at her. When you put it like that, it makes me sound like an unmitigated jackass. She cracked up, and so did he. I didn't say it. You did. By the time dinner was ready, he chilled, rolled, and folded the dough again. They decided to eat in the kitchen so Beau could keep working on the croissants. When he brought silverware over to the kitchen table, he picked up his phone and then stilled, his back to her. Beau? After a few seconds, he turned around. She, texted me back. My mom. She asked if I could come to LA next weekend to see her. Izzy looked at Beau to try to gauge his reaction to that, but she couldn't tell from the tone in his voice or the look on his face. How do you feel about that? She asked. She shook her head. Sorry, I sound like I'm trying to be your therapist or something. That's not what I mean, but he looked at the kitchen island, still dusted with flour. I don't know, he said. He walked over to the toaster oven and scooped pigs in a blanket on their plates. They were going full-on frozen snack foods for dinner tonight. Do you want honey mustard or barbecue sauce? We have a number of different kinds of each, of course. Well, that was a clear change of subject. Both, obviously, she said, but I'm not picking on what kind. After they sat down at the table, Beau looked over at her. Sorry, I'm just a little knocked out, if that's okay. Izzy reached for a pig in a blanket. That's totally okay. And then she stopped. Also, if you want to be alone now, that's okay too. I can just... He shook his head. I don't. I was actually kind of looking forward to this.
Ooh,
She looked at him for a second, then down at her plate. Me too. They didn't talk about anything else hard for the rest of the night. They just ate dinner and finished the croissant dough and made cookies and watched TV. But somehow, she felt closer to him at the end of the night than she had at the beginning. Chapter 21. On Monday afternoon, Izzy met Beau in the library. He raised his eyebrows at her as she sat down. Are you still up for our deal? Beau asked. About us both writing, I mean. Izzy gestured to the notebooks she'd brought with her. One was Beau's, the one they passed back and forth every time. The other was her own. I'm not one to back out of a deal, she said. Haven't you learned that about me yet? There was a certain amount of bravado in her voice, bravery she didn't exactly feel. Yes, she'd been tinkering with an idea for the past few weeks, jotting down notes, tiny scenes here and there, but she was scared to really commit to writing again. She was glad, in a way, that this deal with Beau would force her to write, but another part of her was terrified that she'd discover Gavin was right. This was too hard for her. She was no good at this. Or even worse, that her experiences with writing and publishing over the past few years had taken away all her joy in writing, that joy she used to have when she was a teenager, sitting on her bed with her notebook for hours, deep into a world she'd created. But it scared her even more to never try again, to leave that part of her life, of her dreams, behind. She pushed Beau's notebook across the table to him and took out her phone to set the timer. This time, it was for her, not for him. She took a deep breath as she opened her own notebook. Hey, Beau said from across the table. She looked up at him. He was smiling softly at her. You're gonna be great. You know that, right? She could tell from the look on his face that he wasn't fooled by her. He knew she was nervous about writing again. She swallowed. Thanks. She wanted to say more, to say it helped for him to say that. It helped to have him there, sitting across the table from her. It helped to know he believed in her. but she couldn't get anything else out. But she thought, he might already know all of that. She picked up her phone again. Okay. She pressed start. Go. And then she looked at her notes from the past few weeks. The ones she barely admitted to herself that she had envisioned as a book. Okay. She could do this. She flipped to a blank page in her notebook. When the timer went off, she sat up with a jolt. It had been slow going at first. She'd hesitated over names, places, transitions. She'd wanted to reach for her phone more than once, to look something up, to distract herself from the hard parts, to see if Priya had texted her. But instead, she'd made herself keep going, partly because of the timer, mostly because Bo was sitting across from her. And eventually, after a while, she'd forgotten to worry about whether that name was right, or if that place was really spelled like that, or if Priya had gone out yet with that hot medical student she'd met at the wedding. She'd even forgotten Bo was there. She'd just fallen headfirst into her own words, her own story, her own imagination. And it felt great. Bo's smile was wide this time as he looked at her. It was good? He asked. She nodded. Yeah, she said. It was good. When it was time to leave the library, he started to say something, then shook his head and stood up. She stayed in her seat. What? He sat back down. Sorry, it's just, I wanted to ask you something, but I think it's probably... He looked at her face and laughed. Okay, he sighed. This is your last week here. The smile fell from her face. Yeah, it is. He nodded. I'd sort of managed to ignore that until your friend said something, and maybe that's why I was so on edge the other day. He sort of smiled. I mean, one of the reasons I was so on edge. He thought maybe he was on edge because he was upset about her leaving?
Ooh.
Was that what he meant? She didn't have a chance to linger on that question. Anyway, what I was going to ask was, do you think maybe you could stay for a little while longer until I feel... He stopped and then smiled at her. Until I feel like I can actually do this without you is, I guess, the only honest way I can end that sentence. Yes, she said. I can stay. She didn't have to stop to think. She knew she wanted to stay.
Hold up now.
But this time, she finished, you have to ask Marta. His face fell at her last words. Right, that makes sense, he sighed. Have I mentioned that she scares me? Izzy laughed. Don't worry about that. She scares everybody. Well, at least it's not just me, he said. He pulled his computer toward him, but Izzy shook her head. You can't email her about this. You have to call her. He looked at her, wide-eyed. Call her? On the phone? Izzy nodded. I know. Trust me. I know. But Marta does everything important on the phone. If you email her, she'll do one of three things. She'll ignore it, she'll say no right away, or she'll call you. Wouldn't you rather be the one to call? Plus, Marta respects that. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. I have to do this right now, don't I? Izzy didn't say anything. Fine, he said. But you have to stay here.
Oh my
okay?
gosh. That sounds
Like she would miss this. I'll be right here, she said. Do you have her number? She'll probably still be in the office right now, but if not, I can give you her cell. Here. She pulled out her phone and texted him Marta's numbers. He stared at her as he called. Hi, Marta. This is Bo Towers, he said when she answered the phone. His voice got deeper, which made Izzy have to hold back a giggle. He shook his finger at her. Yes, everything is going well with Isabel. I'm making a lot of progress on the memoir. That's actually why I called. I was wondering if I could borrow her for a while longer. She's been a great asset to me, you know. A great asset? Izzy pressed her lips together so she wouldn't laugh out loud, and Beau grinned at her. He nodded. Yes, I've talked to Isabel about this, but of course you'll need to talk to her as well to make sure she'd like to stay longer. She could hear Marta's voice, but she couldn't hear what she was saying. But she suddenly knew. Oh no. She should have prepped Beau better before he made this call. She says how long? He mouthed to her. She ripped out a piece of paper from her notebook and started writing. I was thinking a month, he said. He made a panicked face at Izzy, and she almost laughed. After the week we already have remaining, of course. Marta was still talking, but Izzy knew exactly what she was saying. She held up her note so he could see it. Negotiate! His eyes widened, and he nodded at her. I don't think an additional 2 weeks is enough time, he said in a much more assured voice, especially given where I am in the book. But an extra 3 weeks might do it. He listened for a second, and then grinned at her. Excellent, he said. I'll let her know. Izzy grinned back at him, but his attention went back to the phone. Beau's smile faded. Okay, he said after a while. Of course. Izzy raised her eyebrows at him, but he shook his head. What did Marta say? Did she change her mind? Okay. Thanks, Marta. I appreciate it. He hung up the phone and stood up. We did it! Izzy jumped up. We did it! He came around the table and enveloped her in a hug. She hugged him back. She's even scarier than I remembered, he said. Thank God you were there for that. I never would have made it out alive on my own. She leaned into the hug. She'd forgotten how good this felt, for him to hold her like this. It had only happened one time before, that accidental time in the kitchen. But this time, it was on purpose, for both of them. He was so big and strong, and it just felt so right to have his arms around her like this. She didn't want him to ever let go. As soon as she thought that, as soon as she realized that she'd thought that, she made herself drop her arms and take a step back. He was smiling down at her, with a look on his face that she swallowed and looked away. I should have prepped you better for it, though, she said. I forgot to warn you that with Marta, everything is a negotiation. She looked back up at him. What did she say to you at the end there? He turned to the door. Oh, just that she'd confirm this with you, to make sure you want to stay, and that she's looking forward to the book. That all made sense, but Izzy had thought there had been something else. Maybe she just imagined that anxious look on Beau's face. Beau stopped just after they'd gotten out of the library. I should teach you to bake a cake tonight, so we can celebrate. She put a confused look on her face. A cake? But I didn't see any cake mix in the pantry. He looked horrified. Mix? You think I'd make you cake out of a mix? She laughed out loud. She knew that would get him. He glared at her, but she could see the smile underneath. Ah, that was a joke, was it? You think I'm just that easy to antagonize? She laughed again as she turned to go upstairs. Chapter 22. When she walked into the library on Friday afternoon, she could tell something was wrong with Beau. He had that tense look on his face that she now knew meant he was stressed, not angry. Everything okay? She asked him when she sat down. Everything's fine. Why wouldn't it be? He took the notebook that she pushed across the table to him. They were well past the point when either of them was worried that he'd delete a part of his book. At least, she was pretty sure they were. But they still exchanged the notebook every day. No reason, you just seem out of sorts, that's all, she said. I'm fine, he said, without looking at her. Okay, then. She opened her own notebook and pulled out her phone to start the timer. They wrote in silence for a minute or two. I'm nervous, he said. She stopped the timer and looked at him. He was staring down at his notebook. "I'm seeing my mom tomorrow," he said. "Every day this week I've typed out a text to cancel. So far I haven't sent one, but who knows what will happen later today, or tomorrow morning, or tomorrow if I actually make it in the car to drive to LA. She'd been so intent on her own work that week that she'd almost forgotten that Beau would be seeing his mom this weekend, and how hard that would be for him. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. "About what you're nervous about?" He let out a short laugh. "What am I not nervous about? Seeing her again, telling her how sorry I am in person, finding out how mad she is at me. Hell, I'm not sure whether she'll even let me in her house, given what I said to her, how I acted. And not just at the funeral, but her text was nice, but she has every right to be furious." He tried to smile at her, but it wasn't that successful. Izzy thought for a moment. "Do you want me to come with you? Not to see your mom, but just, like, in the car, to keep you company so you don't turn around and come back here?" Until recently, she would have hesitated to ask him something like that, and then hedged it more with, "You don't have to say yes to this," or "My feelings won't be hurt if you say no." But they didn't have to be careful around each other anymore. His eyes widened. "Would you really do that for me?" "Yes, of course I want you to come. But it's a lot to ask." She tried to ignore how good it felt for him to say, "Of course," like that. "You didn't ask. I offered. I can't solve any of those other problems for you, but I can sit in the car with you and go to a coffee shop or something and write or read for however long you're with your mom. And I can hold onto your phone on the way so you don't cancel." He looked down at the notebook. "Okay," he said after a moment. "Thanks." She started the timer. "You're welcome." So, Saturday, late morning, they walked to the car together. Izzy offered to drive, but Beau shook his head. "No, I can do it," he said as they walked to the car. "I want to do it." He trimmed his beard, she noticed. He still seemed on edge, like the slightest thing would cause him to jump. "Oh." He reached into his pocket at the first stoplight they hit and handed her his phone. "You said you'd take this?" She slid it into the pocket of her denim jacket without a word. They'd been on the freeway for about 30 minutes before he said anything else. "Remind me," he said, "before we leave LA, I want to stop at this one tea place. They have Michaela's favorite tea, and it's hard to find. I thought, since we won't be that far away, we should get her some." That was nice of him, to think about Michaela like that. "What's it called?" she asked. "I can go pick it up while you're with your mom." "Oh, that's a good idea. It's that brand in the kitchen with the black boxes and gold letters. The tea place is called Off to the Cupboard." She nodded. "Sounds good." They drove on for another 30 minutes until suddenly Beau pulled off the freeway and into a gas station right off the exit. She expected him to get out of the car to get gas, but instead he turned to her. "I'm not sure if I can do this," he said. She turned to him and grabbed his hand. "You and I both know you can do this. That's not in question. The question I want you to think about is whether it will feel worse for you to push through this hard, scary feeling now and do it, or if it'll feel worse to turn around, walk back in the house, and wake up tomorrow and every day after this, knowing you didn't do this." He looked down at their hands, his large hand holding tight to her smaller one,
Ooh.
his pale brown skin against her darker brown skin,
Okay.
and didn't say anything for a while. Finally, he let go. "Okay." He started the car again and pulled out of the gas station and back onto the freeway going south. "Okay, fine." Would it help him to talk? She couldn't tell, but she knew he'd make it clear if he didn't want to. "The foundation," she said, "the one you and Michaela are working on? What's it for?" Beau seemed relieved at the change of subject. "It's to support libraries that don't have big sources of funding. Schools, community centers, places like that." Izzy almost laughed. What a wonderful idea, and not what she would have expected from Beau when she first met him. She smiled at him. "Oh, wow, that sounds great," she said. His hands were a little less tight on the steering wheel. Yeah, at first I wanted to build whole new libraries, do that kind of thing. But I got some advice from a friend who runs the foundation, and she said the goal is to find people who are already doing good work and give them more money to do it with. So that's what we're going to do. Eventually, the goal is to fund writing tutors, scholarships, stuff like that too. Getting a foundation all organized is a lot more complicated than I thought. At least Michaela knows what the hell she's doing, because I definitely do not. She laughed at that, and so did he. He got quiet for a few minutes. Naming it after my grandparents, he said. She put her hand on his for a second. I'm sure they'd like that. A few miles later, she turned to him. I didn't mean it. What I said that day about you, being spoiled and everything. He glanced over at her, a small smile on his face. Yes, you did. She had to smile at that. He knew her too well. Okay, then, I don't mean it anymore, she said. I don't believe it anymore. The smile hovered around the corners of his lips. Thank you for saying that, he said. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, she said. I know, he said. After another hour or so of driving, they pulled up in front of a modest bungalow on a quiet side street. Granted, the quiet side street was just past the Welcome to Beverly Hills sign, so it was only modest in comparison to some of the other houses on the block. He turned off the car and handed her the keys and then some cash from his wallet. For the tea. She took the cash into her wallet. Okay. She took his phone out of her bag. I think it's safe to give this back to you now. Just text me when you want me to come back, okay? I have my notebook, my laptop, lots of books, so I'll be fine for however long. He took the phone from her. Okay. He looked down at his phone. She could tell he was stalling. They were a few minutes early. If you get stressed, she said, just think about watching this Provincial Life later tonight. That made him smile. I'll also think about what snacks we're going to eat during this Provincial Life. Izzy took off her seatbelt. Michaela restocked the cabinet. Did you notice? We have lots of options. His eyes brightened. He took off his seatbelt and reached for the door handle. They both got out of the car. Izzy came around to the driver's side to take the keys from him. Bo looked at her. Then at the house, she could see his shoulders tense up. Do you want a hug? She asked him without thinking about it, then immediately wished she hadn't. That last hug had been way too dangerous. But then he took a step toward her. I absolutely do, he said. He wrapped his arms around her, and she pulled him in close. Her head was nestled into his chest. His arms were hard against her back, and he bent his head so it rested on top of hers. They stayed like that for a while, holding on tight, not saying anything. Finally, he took a step back. Thanks. I really needed that. She backed up too. Glad I could help. They looked at each other for a few more seconds, and then he turned to the house again. Okay, I guess I better... She nodded and opened the car door. Just text me. I'll be close by. She watched him walk up to the house and waited until he was at the front door before she drove away. Izzy found off to the cupboard relatively easily, though she had to pay an arm and a leg for parking. She saw the boxes of Michaela's tea and got her 4 boxes with the money Bo had given her. They cost more than she'd ever expected tea to cost, but then she'd always been more of a coffee person. There was an empty table by the window, so she ordered herself some tea and a slice of chocolate cake and sat down. Then she stared at her laptop. All week, she'd been trying to make herself open the file for her old novel again, read it, and try to decide now that she'd had time and space away if she wanted to keep working on it. After this month with Bo, she no longer believed that Gavin was right about her talent and potential. Now she knew that she wanted this enough to work hard, to fight through setbacks, and to conquer the Gavins of the world. But she was still scared to open this manuscript. She set her jaw. If Beau could text his mom, could drive back to LA to see her, could walk into her house to apologize to her, despite how hard all of that was for him, she could at least open this damn document.
Okay, I did it.
She had to search for the file. She'd hidden it away from herself so she wouldn't have to see it every time.
Pause. Okay, y'all, so it has been an hour, I think, maybe a little bit over an hour of putting this conditioner in my head, and that's why I said that beginning process of detangling, although it took me over 2 hours to do, almost 3 hours to do, if I didn't do that then, this process would have taken longer. And literally all I did was the same exact thing. Take it out of the twist, put the conditioner in, rake it through, put it back in the twist. But because it was already detangled, I was able to cut that time down in half and some. So, not too bad. And I still have more of this Aunt Jackie's to go. Maybe not enough for like a whole extra head, but maybe like majority. So that is pretty good. My hair feels nice and moisturized. So what I'm going to do now is just spritz it just a little bit, just to add some of that moisture in. And then let me dry my hands off real quick. I'm gonna put this plastic cap on. I may sit under the dryer and just try to do some work or something for maybe like 30 minutes. And then I'll hop in the shower to get all this off. But an hour max. An hour might be pushing though, because like I said, I still have to style my hair, let it dry, figure out what I'm wearing tonight, because I don't know. It says to cover it with the plastic cap for 10 minutes, but I might keep it in maybe like 30 minutes, you know, we'll see. But let me show y'all all the shedding that came out this time. Y'all saw all the shedding from earlier, which was a lot. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Sometimes I look at how much hair has shed and I be like shedding a little thug tear. But when you keep your hair in twist from October, the beginning of October to the end of December, what can you expect? Like, you're going to have a lot of shedding. But I'm working on that. That's why I'm saying I'm trying to take more care of my hair so that I don't deal with as much shedding. Like, yes, I know shedding is going to happen, but we can minimize it if I take more or better care of my hair more frequently, instead of just neglecting it and calling it a protective style and just leaving it in something for forever. But this is all I got during this process, which isn't bad for my whole entire head, but I kind of expected to not have a whole bunch considering the fact that I did detangle it earlier. I will most likely not come back on live after rinsing this out to style, only because I'll most likely be recording to make some sort of TikTok, YouTube short, Instagram reel, whatever the case may be. So if y'all want to see the final look of all this, make sure that you are following me not only here on YouTube at Sincerely Dre, but make sure you're following me on TikTok and Instagram at I Am Sincerely Dre, just so y'all can see the final wash and go look. I'm really excited. I hope it turns out well, because there is no plan B right now. There's no plan B. So it's gotta work because we going out tonight. As y'all know, I showed y'all in the first live what I'm gonna be using for this wash and go is gonna be the Dew. It's the B-Girl Crazy Sexy Curl Setting Foam Mousse situation. It's my first time using it, so I'm excited to see how that goes. But based off of what I've seen other people say about it, it looks like it's going to get the job done. I'm really excited for it. I've used the Dew Mousse Death, the blue one, before in the past. No complaints. I just it's been so long since I've used it. It's been so long since I've used it for a wash and go. I last used it for a flexi rod set, and I loved it. So I'm just trying something new to see what's gonna happen with this one. And I was gonna need more mousse anyway, so I had to buy a new bottle either way it went. That's what I'm gonna be using. Like I said, check in on all my socials so that y'all could see the final look, because I will most likely end up recording something hair related for y'all, because I do miss making hair content, and it is one of my favorite things to do, like being a natural girly and being able to do my hair myself and see it go through all the processes is really one of my favorite things to do. So yes, time for me to clean up. Y'all heard the dryer go off, so I need to go take those clothes upstairs, put the clothes that are in the wash. These clothes actually need to be hung up to dry, so I got to do that and get along with today. So thank y'all for coming along with me with the second part of wash day. It has been a day, but I'm ready to get it over with. So time to get into the next session or next part of all of this. I love y'all. Like I said, make sure y'all follow me so I can see y'all more often. I post on TikTok the most, but we don't know what's gonna go on with TikTok in the next few weeks or whatever. So make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, because I post all the time on there, and on Instagram threads, because I post on Instagram threads multiple times a day. That's like my diary. So make sure y'all follow me on there as well at I am sincerely Dree. I love y'all. I hope y'all have an amazing day, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.